it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Brew Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Brian Daboll has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Daboll to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Week 3 now in the books around the National Football League. We welcome you to hour number 2, live right here on the early line on this Tuesday. He is Joe. I am Ben. Still so much National Football League news and notes to break down for you at the end of Week 3, with Week 4 already on the horizon. That is the case each and every week around the NFL. We've got a President's Cup at stake this week up in Montreal. A little bit of international and team golf competition. Keith Stewart will join us up next to break down the format, what you need to know about Team USA versus the Internationals. We'll talk more season outlook and award competition around the National Football League and maybe even delve into the MLB playoff race now that the full final week of the regular season, Joe, in Major League Baseball begins on this Tuesday.
Yeah, it's getting to be fun time, and don't blink because the NHL and NBA will be here before we know it as well, Ben. So, unbelievable time of year.
Did you know they play preseason games in the NHL? I found that out recently.
Yep. Well, it's big news here because the Panthers are your champions boy, they're. You can't even get yourself a ticket to a preseason hockey game right now, Ben. That's how sold out they are.
Sunrise, the Sunshine State, is like the hockey capital. You got the Panthers. Yep. You got the Lightning. Yep. Who needs to be in New York or the Northeast for hockey? Anyway, Joe, let's break things down around the National Football League. We'll save the NHL conversations for a later date. A great headline here on this graphic, but not great news for the Chargers. The unplugged Chargers, says Joe Frieso, our producer extraordinaire. Derwin James suspended by the NFL League office for a game without pay. He's a repeated violator of illegal hits that violate safety protocols in the National Football League. Not great there. Decent news for Justin Herbert as x-rays came back negative on his aggravated high ankle sprain, but still he's going to be day-to-day, questionable moving forward at the quarterback spot. And if you want to make sure your banged up quarterback who's probably less than 100% can stay upright, you need your bookends on the offensive line to be healthy. Not the case. Joe Alt, who got a welcome to the NFL moment from TJ Watt on Sunday in Pittsburgh to miss time with a sprained MCL. Not expected to be overly serious, but still going to miss at least a few weeks. And the left tackle, Rashawn Slater, his Sunday status in doubt as the Chargers get ready for their second divisional game of the year, hosting Kansas City. A pectoral injury for Slater, Joe.
Yeah, not good at all here. There seemed to have been a formula at play here. We knew Justin Herbert was hurt heading into the year, right? There were still a lot of questions. And what we saw the first couple of games, Ben, was Harbaugh making it all about the running game and very little about Justin Herbert in the passing game, which works when you're playing less than defenses. When you can't run the ball like you couldn't against, Pittsburgh, then if you're going to have to rely on Justin Herbert with a bad leg, bad ankle, whatever it may be, he becomes a sitting duck, and that is a problem moving forward, especially against the defense here of Kansas City that's not going to allow them to just run the ball down their throat.
Yeah, it probably will not be the case. The backups right now in Los Angeles, as we saw on Sunday in Pittsburgh, Taylor Heineke, the recent acquisition from the Bolts, and Easton Stick, who does have some experience. Joe, since Justin Herbert came into the league in 2020, the Chiefs and the Chargers have played multiple times. They split the first two with Herbert. They won the first one in 2021. But since that point, Herbert against Mahomes, or at least the Chargers against the Chiefs, LA has dropped 5 straight games. And because of all this injury news, the Chiefs are a 7.5-point favorite on Sunday inside SoFi. Look at the total as well, 39.5. If Herbert is just going to hand it off, you're going to probably put in Taylor Heineke. Maybe Jim Harbaugh suits up in his former Chargers uniform as well. It's just, to me, Joe, an indication of how banged up the Bolts are. I'm not saying it makes sense to bet the Chiefs laying 7.5, especially knowing how prolific teams have been covering numbers as a 5.5-point underdog or greater this year. And the total for Sunday is less than 40, 39.5. It just, I think, dwindles a little bit of the optimism for LA. That was 2-0 in a matchup against another 2-0 team in Pittsburgh on Sunday. They led at the break. They were blanked in the second half, and now they're more than a touchdown underdog against KC.
Yeah, and you know what else, too, is kind of crazy here? Bosa left that game again as well, and now he looks like he's lost for it. So, that should shock absolutely nobody. Most people didn't even realize he was still on the team. But I think the offensive line issues are concerning here, Ben, given the fact that you might be able to be competitive, right? And maybe even steal a game with a backup quarterback. At least that's what backup quarterbacks should be able to do if Joe Alt and Slater and company were healthy.
Right.
But when you mix in backup quarterbacks and now I've got backup linemen, oh boy, this is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Joe, especially if you're going to have that reserve quarterback try to continue what Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh have brought to L.A. Run the football down your throat. Well, if you know the backup quarterback is not likely to throw and the Chiefs are going to stack the box and sell out to stop the run, but you had a good offensive line, maybe you neutralize that. With a banged-up offensive line and injuries on the defensive side of the football, not exactly great for a Chiefs defense that won them the football game on Sunday night in Atlanta. Other injury news around the National Football League, or at least just some headlines. Andy Dalton to remain the starter for Carolina. As we shared, the Panthers only a 4.5-point underdog at home in Charlotte on Sunday against the 0-3 Bengals. If you would have told me the Bengals would be the winless team in that matchup, I would have laid a very large wager that you were incorrect. Gardner Minshew, for the moment, as they're making some business decisions in Las Vegas, is still the starting quarterback for the Raiders. Behind him is the second-year pro, Aiden O'Connell. Joe, do you expect to see a change at the quarterback spot at any point of this season for Las Vegas?
Again, was it really Gardner Minshew's fault there? I don't think so. And is there really, what's the difference? It's not like you're going from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, where you've got, crazy experience versus a rookie. Both of those guys have their limitations. And I do still think Gardner Minshew gives you the best chance to win if you're the Raiders. But he's going to need help, and that's what they got to figure out.
Aiden O'Connell made 10 starts last year. It's not like you have a young rookie you're trying to find out a ton about so you can see if it's worth drafting somebody if you end up in the top 5 or top 10 of the 2025 NFL draft, which the Raiders are certainly on course to do. You're going to get a quarterback would be my guess. My only issue with Las Vegas, not even an issue, just a question, what is Devontae Adams still doing out in the desert if things go south, especially with that signal caller? Sam Laporta, a low ankle sprain for Detroit. Not great news. Expected to maybe miss a game or two, but not as terrible as it could have been for a tight end who set many a rookie record last season for tight ends. Joe, the Browns allowed 8 sacks to the Giants on Sunday, and now they're going to have even more offensive line injuries. Wyatt Teller is going to miss multiple weeks, could be eligible for injured reserve for Cleveland. Hi, boy, it's not good for the Browns.
They had just gotten everybody finally practicing last week, the original 5 offensive linemen. Things were looking up, and now that's it. Conklin didn't play. Taylor's hurt now again. All right, well, it was nice. Thanks so much for playing here, Stefanski.
I think Kevin Stefanski is longing for Joe Flacco to be back. For whatever reason, it unlocked his offense in a way that Deshaun Watson has been unable to. President's Cup. Let's get you set for it up in Montreal. Can the Internationals pull off the upset, or will Team USA continue its dominance? Keith Stewart joins us next. It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was only going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind L.A., that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
An international and team golf competition to end out September. It's the President's Cup up in the Great White North in Montreal. We are now joined live in Montreal by Keith Stewart here on this Tuesday on the early line to explain everything you need to know about the 2024 President's Cup, the format, the teams, the rosters, and what is at stake. Keith, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here on TEL.
Ben, Joe, we're up here, the USA. Let's do it this week. Come on, guys. Let's break it down. What do you got for me?
So, Keith, oftentimes I think when people who maybe are casual golf fans think of international team golf competition, their first thought is the Ryder Cup. That's Team USA versus Team Europe. This is Team USA versus the international team on international soil up in Montreal. Let's start with the format and the roster breakdowns. Who does Team USA bring into this fight? Who's the captain, and who do you expect to excel?
All right, well, the U.S. they've got 10 of the top 20 players in the world on a team of 12. I mean, they are stacked. The average world golf ranking of their team is 12. Versus the international team, their average world golf ranking is 34. Both teams are made up of guys that are around 30 years old. Average team age is 31 for both sides. So these guys know each other very well. They play on the PGA Tour all the time. There's no live guys here, right? It's just a PGA Tour sanctioned event. We're up in Royal Montreal. This is the 15th edition of this. Canadian captain Mike Weir has his guys fired up to try to go after the huge, favorite side of the U.S. team, who is captained by Jim Furyk. Now, we all remember Jim Furyk was a losing Ryder Cup captain back in Paris 2018. And that's probably one of the things that the international side is hanging their hat on as far as coming up with an ups. Maybe the U.S. side overthinks this, but I tell you, they are stacked. Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, Clark, Patrick Cantley. These guys are all here ready to do battle in a couple of different formats, and I guess we'll get into that too.
Let me ask you, Keith, about the international side, because with Mike Weir, he's got 3 pretty darn good Canadians on his team with Pendrith, Hughes, and Connors. What are you expecting from this side?
I think he's got to lean on those guys a lot, and not just when they're playing. And I think Corey, as the Canadian best player in the world rankings, I think he's got to go 5 matches. But I think he has to also rely on these guys to get the crowds motivated. I think Canada, every time, on the PGA Tour, when we come up here for the Canadian Open one time a summer, Canada comes out and they represent. And I think this thing is going to be a madhouse this weekend. It's going to be a hockey match that's going to last 4 days. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But that's where the Canadians, I think, really, really can play an integral part of this team. It's that even though Mac Hughes, he's not going to play 5 matches. But when he's not playing, it's getting the crowds going. It's getting them behind this, guys. On the international side, they really need, that 13th man, that one extra player to be the crowd, to kind of put some pressure on these guys. And if the Americans don't get out to a quick start, the pressure is going to build. Are you on the team that's going to be the first one to lose in a very long time, at least this century? I mean, this is the 15th one of these. In 14 President's Cup matches, the U.S. is 12-1-1. They haven't lost since 1998 in Australia, and they didn't take a very strong side to that match back in the day. So I tell you what, Scotty, Xander, Colin, all of these guys, Tony Finau, they don't want to be on the team that loses. So the pressure will mount if the Canadians can mount a charge.
The only 2 times Team USA has not won the President's Cup, as Keith mentioned, losing big in '98 on international soil and tying back in 2003, which means the Americans have won 9 in a row. You saw the odds. Keith, before we get to the breakdown and just how competitive this year's President's Cup might turn out to be, let's talk about the format. International team golf events are different. The atmosphere is going to be electric up there in the Great White North. What is the format? What can fans expect to see over these next few days up in Montreal?
I tell you what, there's 2 things that the President's Cup does that I wish the Ryder Cup would do. And that is they stretch it out a little bit, and it's the way that they do the pairings. First, the format. They start on a Thursday, not on a Friday. So on Thursday afternoon, we're going to get 4-ball matches. That means 4 balls are in play. 2 American guys versus 2 international players. The best score from each team per hole wins that hole. You win enough holes, you win the match. If there's more than that left to play. Now, of course, on Friday, we're going to go foursomes. That's better known as alternate shot. So if Joe and Ben are partners, one guy chooses the odd holes to tee off on, the other guy chooses the even holes. And then they alternate shots from there. The team with the lower score wins the hole. Saturday, we're going to do both. We're going to do 4 matches of each. 4 ball in the morning, foursomes in the afternoon, and then Sunday we get to the 12 singles matches. Now, what's cool about the President's Cup, which they don't do at the Ryder Cup, is when the captains make the pairings, they do it as a snake draft, almost like your fantasy football, right? So when Captain Weir brings up that, hey, I'm going to put out Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith, then Captain Furyk can come back with whomever he wants from the American side. Let's say that Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantley. So when it comes to the singles on Sunday, they can actually match up the guys that everyone really wants to see play head-to-head, and I think that's one of the coolest things about the President's Cup.
Well, we ain't running to the window to lay to 340, so how do we approach when we're looking at betting this thing here, Keith? What's the best way to approach this?
You got to start to look at some of the prop bets, Joe. Top captain's pick for money, maybe Sam Burns at plus 300. How about top American players? So, a lot of these, situations where you start to think about who's going to play 5 times. Scotty Scheffler's going to play 5 times. Xander Schauffele's going to play 5 times. If Captain Furyk doesn't play them 5 times, then, man, the internationals start to get an edge, don't they? Hideki Matsuyama, he's got to play 5 times. Adam Scott. So there's all sorts of prop bets. Most points on their side, most points in the whole matches between the international and the U.S. side, most points by a rookie, most points by a captain selection. Those are the spots where if you hit your mark, like I mentioned before, Sam Burns is going to play with Scotty Scheffler. They're going to play a bunch of times. As a captain selection, most points, plus 300, to me, that's much better than laying the minus 250 or minus 300, whatever the U.S. is when it starts.
The United States, a hefty favorite, as you saw, and it's not expected to be overly close. But, Keith, as you might expect, Scotty Scheffler is the favorite to be the top overall and American point scorer. What else is new? Keith Stewart, enjoy the rest of the time in Montreal. Thanks for helping us get ready for the 2024 President's Cup that starts this week. Plenty more to come on the early line on the other side of the break. It's a new era in CFP to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
The full final week of the MLB regular season starts on this Tuesday. Only 4 games yesterday. Why? A ton of teams resting up to begin their second to last series of this Major League Baseball regular season. Some in the hunt for October, some trying to claim a playoff berth, some trying to clinch a division. So let's set the stage with all of the competitive races that you need to know over these final 6 days and games of the MLB regular season. We start in the American League, Joe, by looking at the AL playoff picture. The Yankees need one win to claim the American League East. They have built up a hefty lead over the O's, who are 4 games below 500 since the All-Star break. 92-64 for New York. Not just a big lead, Joe, for the Yanks over the Orioles. Also a pretty substantial difference now in front of the Guardians. They've got a 2.5-game lead for the top overall seed in the American League. The Astros had an opportunity, like the Phillies did in the National League East, to claim the American League West divisional crown last night. Bryce Miller, 7 innings of 2-hit baseball, shutting out the Astros. They did end up scoring 1 run, but Seattle keeps the hope alive ever so slightly in the American League West. Those are the divisional standings. Now let's get to the really good stuff. It's the wild card race. The Orioles, all right, they're not going to win the American League East, but still they have a 4-game lead for the top wild card spot. The Royals have lost 7 straight. The Tigers are playing out of their mind since August 22nd. Those 2 American League Central teams are tied for the final 2 AL wildcard spots. The Twins on a slide. They are now a full game outside of the wildcard standings, and the Mariners only back by 1.5 games, even if the American League West seems a little bit out of reach.
Yeah, and boy, it got real interesting over the last week and a half, Ben, mostly because the Royals have fell apart. And now all of a sudden, with the way Detroit's been playing, Minnesota, the Mariners now, can they win enough games and get some help here? I really thought it was pretty solidified there that we were going to just get the Orioles, the Royals, and the Twins, but anything but that can happen. It might look totally different by the end of the week here, Ben. It's kind of crazy.
And, Joe, that is the crazy thing, and you are completely correct in that at least estimation. At the All-Star break, even in the few weeks after, by the time we got to the middle of August, it seemed pretty determined. The Red Sox were struggling. The Mariners were not going to catch the Astros, who were surging in the American League West. That in some form or fashion, the team that lost out on the American League East would be the top wild card team. And it would be the Twins and the Royals in some order taking the final 2 spots. Minnesota has struggled mightily. Detroit has been great, and KC is holding on for dear life as they have lost 7 in a row. So let's look at those playoff odds available on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Exactly a week ago, I bet the Tigers at plus 140 to make the American League postseason. You could have got them closer to plus 700 a few days prior to that. Now, where the odds are in the American League, Detroit is minus 405, Minnesota minus 138, Kansas City minus 178. The Tigers have the best price of the American League Central trio to get to the postseason.
It really is kind of crazy what's been going on here. The Royals could very well, if they can't turn this thing around, Ben, this is just heartbreak city here for Kansas City. But I do think they should have enough to be able to close it out down the stretch here this week. I'm banking on them making the playoffs.
Yeah, you know what's so interesting, Joe? It's not like the Royals have been on this slide the entirety of the second half or all of September, even since the middle of August. They had won 7 of 9 prior to the 7-game skid that did feature a sweep against the Tigers. So the Tigers, who have now won 6 of their last 7 games, and since August 22nd, when they were 4 games below 500, have won 20 of 28. They are in prime position. The Tigers end with 2 home series, and here is why Detroit is greater than a $4 favorite. They play the Rays at home, Tampa below 500, and they end the year against the White Sox. The Royals have to go on the road for their final 2. They go to the nation's capital to take on the Nats, and then they end the year against Atlanta obviously we'll get to the National League wild card chase because that's the story. The Braves and the Mets start a series against one another today. We'll go to the NL. Up next, it's going to be a good final week of this MLB regular season. Stay with us on the early line. It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, from the American League playoff picture, now we go to the National League. Most has been decided, but of course we have a monumental series about to start today in Atlanta between the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. So let's go to the top. The Dodgers, 3-game lead in the National League West. The reason that is interesting is because the Dodgers begin a series today against the Padres, who have won 4 straight. San Diego sweeping the White Sox over the weekend. Good for the Padres. The Phillies clinched the National League East last night, their first divisional crown since 2011, trailing the Dodgers by a half game for the number 1 overall seed. The Brewers clinched the National League Central, the first team to clinch a division last week. They're going to host the wild card round. Outside of that, probably going to be on the road. The Padres in advantage, as you see there, 3 games up over the Mets for the top wild card spot. The Mets and the Braves will get to. The D-backs lost yesterday, Joe, at home against the Giants. They were booked as the home favorite. Matt Chapman had a good day at the dish for San Francisco. So the D-backs and the Mets were tied following the weekend. Arizona falls back by a half game, now just a game and a half in front of Atlanta. So let's talk about the series that everybody will have an eye on this week. I mean, of course, we're going to be tapped into everything here that has some sort of significance and importance for the MLB playoff race. But when you have 2 teams squaring off for the same spot, that's where you focus, especially if it's a divisional rivalry. We start today in Atlanta. The Braves and the Mets. Spencer Schwellenbach, the rookie, on the bump for the Braves. A disastrous start to the year, has been really good since June. Luis Severino on the other side for New York. The Braves are a home favorite today against the Mets. Can they claw their way back, Joe, Can Atlanta make their way to a National League playoff appearance once again?
I just don't think so, Ben. I mean, Schwellenbach, I think, gives them the best shot because he's been the most reliable and has literally carried this team for most of this season. Quite honestly, coming in as a rookie, he's been the one guy they've been able to at least depend upon. But I just don't see the Braves with the hot and cold lineup here. They've yet to put any sort of streak together, Ben, that would impress me enough to think that the bats are going to get hot at the right time. I don't see it happening. To me, they're going to score another one of these 1-2 runs and lose, and they're going to figure out what went wrong. The lineup went wrong this year for Atlanta.
It's been so tough, right? The Braves even having an opportunity is kind of a testament, actually, to what their roster has been able to do. You look at the starting staff. They lost Spencer Strider before the year really got underway. They lose the reigning National League MVP, Ronald Acuna Jr. You could have a long injury list for everything Atlanta has had to deal with to even have an opportunity to be just a game and a half out starting their final week of this MLB regular season to have the chance to sniff the postseason. It's minus 146 to the no. That means the Braves are favored to miss the postseason entering this final week. Arizona is minus 385. The New York Mets minus 560. That's really it when it comes to consideration in the National League wild card chase. And the Mets don't need to sweep the Braves. Heck, they don't even really need to win the series. They just need one win in Atlanta. But if they can take 2 of 3 in the ATL, the Mets will be a playoff team. They end the year against the Brewers, which on paper is a good team, but Milwaukee, by that point, they're not going to catch either the Dodgers or the Phillies for those top 2 spots in the opening round bye in the National League. They've already claimed the division.
Yeah, and I mean, motivation, there really is none for them at that particular point. They're going to be looking ahead to pitching matchups and lining up their rotation, and they're not going to have any interest in that series whatsoever.
Yeah, not whatsoever. So now let's talk about the other compelling race. Only a half game separates the Dodgers and the Phillies for the number 1 overall seed. Home field advantage throughout the National League postseason. The Dodgers a hefty favorite at minus 150. The Phils celebrating last night. I would not look to Philadelphia to bounce back today and maybe claim a game, which probably benefits the Dodgers because they're still in a chase here, Joe, against the San Diego Padres. No division prices out on the FanDuel Sportsbook. The Dodgers, of course, a cushion 3 games in front of San Diego, but they do face each other in a 3-game set. There is a World of Padres sweep Los Angeles, as they've been one of the hottest teams since the All-Star break, which could make this rather compelling. The odds makers do not expect that to be the case. LA minus 150 to be the number 1 overall seed in the National League. The Phils, the second best price at plus 180.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that the Dodgers certainly have shown a little something here down the stretch where they still have another gear. I can't believe it took the Phillies as long as it did, quite honestly, with the first half they had been, to actually get it done and lock in that top spot there in the National League East. But better late than never. But I still think the way the odds are rolling right now, the Dodgers should be the favorite, and the Phillies are a clear second choice. But will the chalk prevail, man? That's the big question.
And that has been the question with the expanded postseason in Major League Baseball. We have seen many wild card teams take advantage of momentum in October to be there. World Series last year, a matchup between 2 teams that finished in wild card spots. In fact, let me just check this here. I'm pretty sure they both occupied the final spot, the 6th seed in their leagues, to get in to the postseason. If I am not mistaken and can get a little bit of help here, that would be helpful as well. No, the Rangers were the 5 seed, the second of 3 wild card teams in the American League. The D-backs were that 6 seed, but of course 2 wild card teams facing off in a World Series. The debates of rest versus rust and the expanded postseason crowning a legitimate World Series champ, we will save for that time. The Phillies have at least played in the National League Championship Series each of the past 2 years. Red October, a big thing in Philadelphia. I will say this about the Dodgers. Again, heavily favored. The odds aren't even out there right now to hold on and win the National League West. The Dodgers are a home favorite slightly today. Landon Knack gets the start against Michael King for San Diego. If the Dodgers do that, Joe, which we expect at least through their final two series, LA will win the National League West for the 11th time in the last 12 seasons. And yet, in the previous 10 playoff appearances, the Dodgers have made the World Series only 3 times. In their only World Series title, that came in the COVID-shortened sprint that was 2020. It is time for the Dodgers, that were expected to be the best team in baseball, that were expected to be a World Series champ, do exactly that after a historic season from Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and it's so funny, Ben, because here we are, right? They still have still something to be decided here in terms of seeding for them. But the biggest question mark remains, and this is what, for the second year in a row, is Jack Flaherty, Yamamoto, Buehler, and Knack. Is that enough in a starting rotation to make you want to back the Dodgers? And I just don't know that that's the case.
It's a great point, Joe. It really is, because Tyler Glasnow not expected to be back for Dave Roberts and the Dodgers throughout this postseason. We know pitching wins. If you were going to compare starting staffs between those top two teams in the National League, I think Philadelphia would have the edge. And by the way, if it comes down to it, that the Phils and the Dodgers are tied with the same record at the end of this season, Philadelphia has the tiebreaker, winning the season series against Los Angeles for that number 1 overall seed. Quickly back to the American League. Again, the Yankees 1 win away from claiming the American League East, 6 games up on Baltimore. They face each other up in the Bronx to start this final week. The Yankees are a heavy favorite today at -162 with Clark Schmidt on the bump, and they're a hefty favorite at -220 to win the series. Those odds available. The Braves, by the way, pretty heavy favorite over the Mets to win the series. Be worth a sprinkle on the Amazons, albeit on the road. More on the early line up next. It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Brew Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
After week 3 of this 2024 NFL regular season, let's check in on the odds, not just for team outlook as we did in the opening hour plus, but in the individual races with 2 quarterbacks putting on a show last night that now top each market. We start with the MVP. That's at least where I would like to begin because, Joe, I got a little bit heated when we were discussing the most valuable player award odds earlier in the opening hour. Patrick Mahomes is listed as a co-favorite right now with Josh Allen. It's incorrect. Both at plus 250. It's incorrect. Those two guys, so much shorter than everybody else in this market. C.J. Stroud has the third best number at 14-1. He just threw 2 INTs in Minneapolis on Sunday. But Patrick Mahomes should not be up there. He is up there because he is Patrick Mahomes and his Kansas City team, the Super Bowl favorites with a short price and off to a 3-0 start. But Mahomes himself, admittedly from himself, has not been good enough. He's had 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He has thrown an interception in all 3 games for KC so far this year, and it's not like he's thrown for 350 in all 3 and yet turned the football over. The numbers are not there, and frankly, the narrative is not there. Mahomes last year led a Chiefs team that was supposed to drop off to a Super Bowl. That was his year to win the MVP. He's won 2 MVPs since 2018. He's not winning 3 in 6 years, or make it 7 years now as the starter for Kansas City. It's just an incorrect number on Mahomes. By the end of the year, if the stats are up there, for sure he should be a front runner for the NFL MVP award. Not where we are right now after week 3.
But, and there's always a but here, Ben. We also, what he does have is history. And we also know that the last couple that he's won, and correct me if I'm wrong, we were kind of having the same conversation at this point because Kansas City usually starts very slow during the beginning of the season. A lot of changes over the last couple of years with Kansas City here. But the one thing that has never changed is by the time we got to November, Kansas City playing its best football. Nobody remembered how bad he was in September and how bad the team was. And then what have you done for me lately? It's the same crap we had to go through with Tom Brady. It was the same thing where we'd just be like, why is he the favorite here? They're not any good. Yeah, well, no, it's usually by November. Unless he is 500, he is going to be at the top of this board from now until eternity, Ben. And he's earned it. He's earned that kind of, in September, he's earned that kind of clout at this point.
Certainly so, right? And it is, as we always say, the individual races are correlated to your team's success. If Mahomes is going to lead Kansas City to an AFC championship, or at least through the regular season, the number 1 overall seed in the 8th or 9th consecutive AFC West divisional crown with another 12-5 season, he is going to be considered for this award. I'm just arguing right now based on the stats. In fact, Joe, when you look at the stats and you look at quarterback rating, Mahomes' rating is 17th best among qualified starting quarterbacks in the National Football League, 89.9. You know the best passer rating? It's Josh Allen at 133.7. Josh Allen, in my mind, should be the MVP frontrunner. Not a co-favorite, but just the favorite. 7 touchdown passes to 0 INTs. Did fumble once in their opening game this season against Arizona. But the kryptonite for Josh Allen has been his ability to put the ball into chances where it can be taken away. He has not thrown an interception so far this season. He has the second most touchdown passes with 7. In fact, Joe, we have seen so far throughout this year 15 NFL quarterbacks throw for at least 4 touchdowns. Only 2 have done so without throwing an INT. Josh Allen and sadly Joe Burrow, who has 5 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, but also 0 wins for Cincinnati.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, Ben, because what would the number be? What do you think? Is he closer to 5-1? Is there that big a difference? For stats aside, obviously, is there that big a difference between Mahomes and Allen? Because they're both priced about the same, but because of the start of Allen, he should be a clear. You're not going to make that number less than 250, are you, for Allen?
No. No, I think
So
Josh
Mahomes
Allen
has
is
gotta
3
go
to
up.
1. Mahomes 5 to 1 plus 550, 6 to 1. Something like that. I think there should be that disparity. And if you want to say Mahomes has the second best price in front of somebody like C.J. Stroud, who even has the third best number at 14 to 1, and there's that many tiers and levels of drop-off, I'm fine with that. But Josh Allen should be well in front, and not Mahomes at plus 300 and Allen at plus 125, but just Josh Allen in front of Mahomes. But, Joe, because there is so many levels of drop-off here, it is kind of worth talking about some value. You've got C.J. Stroud, who hasn't been great. 2 INTs last week against the Vikings, but he doesn't often turn the football over. Is there value on Stroud? Is there value on Jalen Hurts? Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP winner. If Joe Burrow can resurrect Cincinnati, maybe. Aaron Rodgers, 4-time NFL MVP, back-to-back winner in 2020 and 2021. Joe, if you were looking for value because we have Mahomes and Allen co-favorites at plus 250, which name might get your attention and maybe a wager?
Well, it's all in that right-hand column to me. It's the two guys up at the top there, Burrow and Rodgers, because they have the most weapons to throw to and to pad those stats. And the Jets have a better defense than what Cincinnati has, but that just means Burrow's going to be playing from behind more often this year, and guess what that means? His numbers are going to be through the roof. The Jets can run the ball. Cincinnati may not have a chance to run the ball, which means it's all going to be on Burrow.
Yeah, and you would need Joe Burrow to lead the Bengals back to history to become just the second team since 2000 to start 0-3 and make the playoffs, an 8-9 Cincy team, even if they look better than they have in the opening 3 weeks, and Joe Burrow throws for 5,000 yards, he's still not going to win the MVP award. Can I reference a name, and we can discuss it on the other side of the break as well, who was not on that list but is technically tied for the 10th best price alongside Kyler Murray? It's the guy that leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. You might have heard of him. His name's Sam Darnold at 28 to 1. Could Sammy D be an MVP contender? We'll talk about it up next. It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was the but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind L.A., that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Offensive Rookie of the Year odds in just a moment. But let me actually get your thoughts here, Joe Ranieri, on the viability of Sam Darnold remaining in the MVP race for all 18 weeks of this NFL season. Because after 3, he has the most passing touchdowns in the National Football League with 8. He didn't throw for 350 and 4 on Sunday in the upset win once again as a home underdog over Houston. He only threw for, I think, 181 yards, but did have 4 touchdowns. Can Sam Darnold remain in MVP consideration all year long?
I mean, it's amazing that nobody's talking more about it, Ben. I mean, kudos to you. He had 4 touchdown passes on 17 completions. That's a pretty efficient day at the office for Sam Darnold. Can it yes, they absolutely can keep that up there. And I'm kind of shocked he hasn't turned into the pumpkin already. But anybody that doesn't think that's a real defense, and Brian Flores knows what he's doing, when you make a C.J. Stroud look like he's an absolute rookie and no idea what he's looking at, yeah, they're going to surprise some people. But will they garner enough votes when it all's said and done? That's going to be the big question for Sam Darnold. And can they keep him healthy?
Right, and Minnesota's going to have to continue to be good. They are one of 5 teams that is perfect 3-0 following week number 3 of this NFL season. The Vikings also just one of 2 teams, along with Pittsburgh, that is 3-0 against the spread. The Vikings, the only team of those 2 that has won outright as an underdog twice this year. Andy Dalton has the second best passer rating now based on the 1-game sample size in the NFL. So out of quarterbacks that have at least made multiple starts this year, Sam Darnold only trails Josh Allen, which leads us to Offensive Rookie of the Year conversations. Jaden Daniels is now the favorite. It is no longer Caleb Williams. It is Jaden Daniels. After week 2, it was Daniels and Williams co-favorites, with Marvin Harrison Jr. moving up the board. Malik Neighbors had multiple touchdown passes. The former college teammates are now the 2 best-priced individuals to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year odds. But Jaden Daniels is the story after making history last night. 21 of 23, that's a 91.3% completion percentage, the best by a rookie quarterback in an NFL game in league history with a minimum of 20 attempts. In fact, Joe, he has a completion percentage now better than 80 around the NFL through his first 3 weeks. That leads the National Football League, not rookies. That leads the National Football League at plus 175. He is now the favorite to win Rookie of the Year on the offensive side.
Well, are we sleeping on Bo Nix now? All of a sudden, Bo Nix, you gotta look at the opportunities, right? And that's the whole thing here. And Bo Nix figured it out there. Right. I think we can all agree that Caleb Williams is not going to be in the conversation due to the fact of the coaching staff. But if I was going to take a flyer here, Neighbors is out of his mind. Danny Dimes ain't even throwing great passes, and he's still somehow coming down with them. He is going to be a menace to a lot of teams. His numbers, Ben, could be all-time great there for a rookie wide receiver, but would they dare give it to a wide receiver and not a QB? That's the question.
Well, oftentimes, Joe, they have when it comes to the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. 3 of the last 6 have played quarterback, the other 3 a wide receiver. Only 4 of the last 10 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year have played quarterback. The reason being, fair or unfair, we associate team success with quarterbacks, with not wide receivers. So even if you put up gaudy stats, but your team stinks, quarterbacks take a shot. Right. You can put up gaudy stats as a wide receiver, and your team can be 5-12, but hey, you were that offensive bright spot to build around. And Malik Neighbors has been that, at least 66 receiving yards in all 3 games. He has got 3 touchdowns over the previous 2 for the Giants. Daniel Jones, by the way, multiple touchdown passes in each of the past 2 weeks. I will say this, though, Joe. One of the reasons I bought into the idea of Caleb Williams being the Offensive Rookie of the Year clear favorite entering is because Chicago had won 5 of their final 7 games last year and was expected to be a winning team with a win total of 8.5 with over having the juice. That's not the case Now the Bears win total has dropped off in some of that overall team success that we thought Chicago was going to have. Maybe now we look at Washington. The Commanders win total up to 7.5. In the over has the juice. The Commanders, a winning football team through 3 weeks. They are 2-1. We'll talk Thursday night football and more football when Hour 3 starts next.